Mobile phone companies say they offer home internet. But if their internet comes from a cell phone network, you should know. It's just phone internet, not home internet. Keep your home up to speed with Cox. Cox internet is faster and has more reliable download speeds than 5G home internet. Cox is the real home internet you're looking for. Based on Cox analysis of Ookla speed test intelligence data Q3 2022 and Cox serviceable areas, visit cox.com/internet for details. Mobile phone companies say they offer home internet. But if their internet comes from a cell phone network, you should know. It's just phone internet, not home internet. Keep your home up to speed with Cox. Cox internet is faster and has more reliable download speeds than 5G home internet. Cox is the real home internet you're looking for. Based on Cox analysis of Ookla speed test intelligence data Q3 2022 and Cox serviceable areas, visit cox.com/internet for details.
What if God was one of us? Just a stranger like one of us.
Do.
What if God were one of us?
Blah, blah, blee, blee, blee.
What if God were a listener of the Tennis Podcast? Hi, I'm Nick Amel, the prodigal son of God himself and host of the Tennis Podcast. Every week, me and my various sidekick hosts guess each other's top 10-ish lists in real time, along with fun facts, trivia, and hot takes. I want to give a special shout out to our beloved Tennis Pod Plus members who are listening to us right now, early and ad-free. Today, my guest sidekick host is God's biggest mistake, Dr. Buster.
Some say mistake, some say crowning achievement.
Who says that?
Now, you said you wonder if God is a listener. God is one of those subscribers you're talking about,
Yeah.
Tennis Pod Plus. He was the first.
I think when people talk about Jesus Christ dying for our sins, they were talking about Tennis Pod Plus membership. He died so that Tennis Pod Plus could exist and provide ad-free content to the world.
Because the material that you put out on this show is so awful, it is the ultimate sin that he had to cleanse us from.
I agree. It has gotten more awful since you've been on the show.
No, since inception.
Okay. I don't know what Leonardo DiCaprio has to do with this, but anyway.
Got him.
Got him. But Leo's girlfriends probably aren't listening to the show. They're not quite old enough yet.
They are not old enough to be a Tennis Pod Plus. They don't have their own credit card yet or bank account.
No. I think you have to be a certain age to even listen to expletive-laden podcasts like this one, so not sure.
Well, who knows? And now it's probably free reign. It's the Wild West on the internet. You get a smartphone in your hands in 5 seconds, you'd be looking at God knows what. There's no age restrictions on podcast apps or Spotify or anything. I mean, you can put parental parameters on things, but if it doesn't have that instilled in it already, I mean, it's off to the races.
How do I instill in you to shut the fuck up and get to the point? Tell us about your list.
Stop inviting me to this show. That's how.
It's a sickness. Just like some people can't give up cold turkey, a drug addiction or cigarettes or, something like that. I have a hard time giving up that booty.
Well, what you haven't realized yet, it's years of methodical subliminal messaging. I send you messages, email, wrong address stuff, addressed to myself, but it actually shows up at your house. I have all these ways of weaseling my way back onto the show, so you end up inviting me, even though you actually don't want to.
Interesting. So you've been on a years-long campaign to infiltrate my very subconscious with subliminal messaging that makes me think of Buster first when I think, well, who should I have on the show this week? Is that the end goal?
Just for you to think of me in general, whether or not it leads to a Tennis Pod invitation or whether it's, about 2-3 minutes into the next lovemaking session with your significant other.
Well, you didn't have to do any subliminal messaging for that, because any lovemaking I do, I'm always and only thinking about you. Indeed. Buster, what's new? What's going on with you?
What's new? What's going on? Well, I'm hosting not one, but 2 lists today. They are related. One may say that one is nested inside of the other, because one of these lists is the top 7 of something.
Bird nest?
Would you give us a minute? Good Lord. Let me start all over.
No.
Within one of those 7 is nested a refined list of the top 5 of that specific category. So to start us off, to get us a little close, the first aspect of guessing you're going to do today, I'm going to give you a little breadcrumb trail to the list topic
Top 10 breads. Top 10 brands of bread.
Top 10 brands of bread. What is your favorite bread brand? When you go to the store, what are you taking home?
Oh, fuck. I don't even know. I don't know the brand. I've been buying special kind of bread now from like the Sprouts, and I don't even know the brand. Well, you fucking asked, asshole.
Boy, this is a...
Don't ask me boring ass questions if you don't want a boring ass answer.
All right, Nick, when you think of an animal being successful, what comes to mind?
Hunting? Like its hunt success rate?
Okay. How often it kills another animal it's hunting. That's a good one. What else?
How many babies they get out of a single fuck?
How many babies they're able to pop out from a single sexual encounter. All right? If I have a lot of babies with each sexual encounter, what is that going to help?
I hope you don't have babies around during your sexual encounters, but...
What is that going to help my species do?
Thrive, populate.
Okay, thrive, populate. Now, when an animal species thrives and populates, what happens?
This is such a long, winding road.
It is.
When an animal species populates, they reduce the likelihood of becoming endangered or extinct.
Okay, so they're reducing the likelihood they're going to go extinct, so they stick around for a long time. When you think about an animal that's stuck around for a long time, what comes to mind?
Alligator has been around forever.
Them gators, okay.
Sharks.
I like it. Sharks.
I did a list with Lindsay from Ye Old Crime in the 170s, I think, episode 170 something, where we did the top 10 oldest animals, like based on which animals have been on Earth longest. So I'm remembering sharks was on there, alligator was on there.
My mother-in-law's on there.
Your mother-in-law, yeah.
Yeah.
Snakes.
So this list is very akin to that list that you just mentioned, but is not the same. It is different. It dials down into one long reigning type of animal.
Sea life?
That you and I are both very fond of.
Monkeys? Kitties. Cats.
Monkeys, kitties, okay. Those are both equally good guesses.
You said, I don't know if I'm obsessed with as anything in the world as I am with kitties, so.
This type of animal was around far longer than kitties or monkeys have been.
Dinosaurs. Mm-hmm.
So today you will be guessing the 7 largest dinosaurs by fossil group. So these are the 7 major fossil groups of dinosaurs. They're all lumped in here together. So any poster child popular dinosaur fits into one of these 7 categories. You'll find these categories are often named after one of their poster child, or the poster child was named after that, typical parental subgroup. Now, I am going to challenge you. I'm going to put you back on your heels in your corner over there, Mr. 200 plus episodes, self-aggrandizing ass.
Self-aggrandizing, okay.
You probably know by heart all 7 of these groups. So I'm really going to challenge you to try to get them in order from 7 to 1. Try, really try. I bet you know number 1, number 2. It gets hairy around 3, 4, 5. I'm really going to challenge you to try to get this from the bottom to the top.
That's what she said. Let me make sure I understand. These are the largest dinosaurs by size, right?
By size, yep. By the average member of that fossil group, their average member size.
So I'm not guessing yet, but like T-Rex would not be its own group. It's part of a different fossil group, a larger fossil group.
Correct.
Yeah.
T-Rex is part of one of these groups.
Okay. What's your source?
Sources are the National Park Service, Britannica.com, Wikipedia, and a special book that I'll be referring to a lot through this episode called
Playboy?
The Rise and Fall of the Dinosaurs by Steve Brusatte. And that book...
Listener of the show.
Totally revamped... Yeah, listener of the show. Revamped the way I think about time and fossils and dinosaurs, and can't recommend it enough. I read it during the beginning of the pandemic. Loved it, and I'll be talking about it a lot today.
Nerd alert. Reading, am I right, everyone?
God, my patience is razor thin already with you, and we haven't even begun guessing.
Okay. And then you said within this list of 7, there's another list inside of it.
Correct. We will cover the second list after you finish the first.
Okay. You know, in Jurassic Park...
Never seen it.
What's that? Oh, okay, Alex Jones. You've never seen it? Fucking idiot. What's the Lost World? The second film in the franchise.
The second one.
At the very beginning, there's this family on the beach, and this little girl sees all these little tiny, like, chicken-sized dinosaurs running at her, and I'm going to guess those aren't on the top 10.
So every dinosaur species is going to be lumped into one of these 7 categories. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, if that's going to be your first guess, I'm gonna caution you.
No, it's not.
That breed of dinosaurs is lumped in with some much bigger boys.
Okay, well...
Think what it's shaped like.
Yeah, I got you. Because me, and I'm sure most people, don't think about dinosaurs based on grouping, right? You think about individual dinosaurs. So that's going to be something I got to wrap my head around here.
We try not to profile dinosaurs. We try to see them as individuals, right?
Well, some of us.
We don't want to put the cart before the horse.
Now, before we get going, answer me this, smart guy. Why do you propagate the propaganda that dinosaurs even existed and weren't strategically placed by the devil to fool Christians like us?
Like we said at the opening, God is a listener of the show, and he's heard how much of a heathen you are. So I'm really trying to bring this forward to see just how much you believe in dinosaurs and how much you're buying into Satan's crock of shit, that all these fossils are really just a ploy by Satan to get us to think that dinosaurs actually live.
I remember hearing in the church I grew up in that dinosaurs did coexist with Adam and Eve and like the first humans.
Yeah, I think that's more the creationist line of thinking, is that dinosaurs were real, the fossils are real, it's not a trick, but that they lived like 5,000 years ago with early humans.
Yeah. It's a more fun history to think about, dinosaurs and people coexisting, but probably not.
Oh, we will get into that. I have some special questions for you.
Okay, all right, well...
as we break up this list.
I'll stop fucking around then.
A quick perspective on time. Some statistics I took from that book that I mentioned, The Rise and Fall of the Dinosaurs by Steve Brusatte. I'm pretty sure I'm butchering that last name.
I'm pretty sure you are too.
Humans, as far as you know, modern humans, when we looked more like great apes, we've been around for about 100,000 years.
I ain't no monkey.
But documented civilization's been around for about 6,000 years. That takes us back to early Egyptian culture. I put that in quote, civilized humans, because we always talk about in the show, even 200 years ago, people were trying not to get shit thrown on them in the street, and people barely took care.
In the streets. Yeah. Alex will tell you about it.
They barely took care of their own children. For perspective, dinosaurs roamed this planet for 190 million years.
Damn.
100,000 years, which is what our whole human evolution has been from early Homo sapiens. 100,000 is 0.05%.
Yeah.
1/20% of 190 million years. 6,000 years go all the way back to the earliest human civilization. That's 0.0032%. If you put it on a pie chart, you wouldn't even see it.
Man.
And that is fucking wild. Now, we'll talk about some of the lifespan, like how far across the fossil record some of these species are. A 7 million year. That's like a healthy span for a dinosaur, 7 million years. That's like an average dinosaur fossil record.
Okay, so like from the beginning to the end of a dinosaur group's.
Sure.
Okay.
Like a velociraptor.
Right.
Velociraptor may have reigned on Earth, was around for about 7 million years. Humans at 100,000 years, that's only 1%, 1.4% of 7 million years. All these facts and figures go to say that we are just beginning, and humans will have to be around for so long to even come close to matching the amount of time that dinosaurs were here. And that itself is mind-blowing to consider.
That's all mind-blowing, and it's a problem if we're trying to beat the record set by the dinosaurs, because this Earth ain't going to be here in 190 million, or at least it won't be inhabitable in 190 million years. So I just don't know. I mean, I don't know. It's really, really hard to think about Earth or even the universe 190 million years from now.
Yeah.
Because humans are going to have to find a way to get out of this solar system. And they probably will by that time, I would think. But I don't know.
The heat death of our own sun, losing its gravitational pull, self-containment on itself and expanding, I don't think that's supposed to happen for like another 3 billion years, which is... So I think Earth if left to its own devices, would still be around 190 years, but who knows if humans are going to fuck it up before we get there.
They will. 100% they will.
One extra note about the fossil record here. Steve in this book mentions that a species in general has to be on Earth for at minimum 1 million years to even show up in the fossil record.
Really?
You have to be around 1 million years to get lucky enough to have the exact right conditions to have at least one of your species preserved somewhere on the Earth. That is nuts.
That is nuts.
So as he demonstrates in a chapter, if humans went extinct today, we wouldn't be on the fossil record. No one would find our remains eventually.
Right.
Because we weren't here long enough to have the right conditions to end up fossilizing even one of us. They wouldn't find us. There'd be no trace of us.
That's wild.
It's so hard to fathom that. We'll talk about a dinosaur today that had a 6.5 million year run on the planet, and to date we've only found 6 partial segments of their bones.
Wow.
Only 6. Planet Earth, only 6, and they were here for 7 million years.
Allegedly. Couple of things, too. Going back to what I was saying about how humans, to preserve our species, eventually are going to have to get off Earth. Whether that's 1,000 years or 1 billion years, it's going to happen at some point. But maybe not, because you could have an event that takes out the human race. Me and Brad Choma have talked about this in some of our episodes, an asteroid or all kinds of things, that a super flu that could take out the human race, or at least most of us, slow our growth down or completely extinct us. Separate point is the dinosaurs are around for 190 million years, Civilized humans, not even like 0.01% of that time. But what does that say? That their stupid asses couldn't grow a big enough brain to be smart like us in all that time.
Well,
it makes you wonder, if humans were to go extinct today and 190 million years passed on this Earth, it suggests that no animal would even come close in that time, in 190 million years of evolution, to having the same or similar kind of brain development that humans have enjoyed.
It depends on the environment, the setup. Back then, it was just a chance that size is what won you out.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that was because all the land was connected back then. We'll get into continental drift and such today, but for humans and mammals, what set us apart was the intellect. And if you could outthink your competitors, that you were more likely to survive. Here, we're talking about size. If you were big enough, you were safe and untouchable, and that's what led to their long-term. And as you've talked about, our civilization's fragile right now because we're advancing at such a pace we can't agree on anything. So maybe brain size and intellect turns out not to be evolutionarily all that great. Maybe size was a better long-term strategy.
Yeah.
We may not even make it 7,000 years.
7,000 years from now, you mean?
We may not even make it another 1,000 years. It seems like every year we make it through without some superpower nuking each other at this point. It seems like a win. So
it is really hard to imagine that 1,000 years goes by and there's not a nuclear war in that time. You know what I mean?
Or even 100 years at this rate.
But yeah, especially, 100 years, 1,000 years, something's going to break at some point. And as my old sidekick host Brandon used to say, he was pretty confident that there's going to come a day when either us or our children or our grandchildren are going to be walking down a dirt road holding a donkey again, because civilization will collapse. But
now, what part of the donkey will they be holding?
I think you know. I meant riding a donkey down the whatever.
What part of it will they be riding?
Buster, this is inter-fucking-appropriate.
Well,
as we discussed, Leonardo DiCaprio's young children girlfriend are listening to this show, and you are corrupting their minds.
Well, speaking of corrupting a mind, how about you give us a guess?
So I don't know what the fossil group is called, but the fossil group that the Triceratops belongs in.
Okay, so we'll start first guess, Triceratops.
And I'll guess it's number 3.
Okay, that's a good guess, but Triceratops belongs in the Ceratopsians, the Ceratopsian fossil group, and that is number 5.
I knew it.
Number 5. Most popular in the Ceratopsian group, Triceratops, obvi. Torosaurus, which there's a debate on whether that's actually just immature juvenile Triceratops, Styracosaurus, and Protoceratops.
For the listeners, I'll include some image links in the show notes if you want to reacquaint yourself with these dinosaurs.
Yes. Pictures will help you out a lot. So this is a very large quadruped group. They have elaborate facial horns and frills extending over the neck. While these frills might have served to protect the vulnerable neck from predators, they may have also been used for display, temperature regulation, and the attachment of very large neck and chewing muscles or some combination of the above. So much like elk and deer, they might have also been used for display, mating, protection from other males in the group, but also against predators.
Yeah. So the defining trait of this fossil group is the, what did you call it? Not the shield, but
a large frill-crested head with protruding horns coming off of the front of the face.
Yeah. Wait, hang on. Are you talking about my first wife or the Triceratops?
You're going to be making that joke a lot today. And also, they all have a parrot beak.
Yeah.
A parrot-shaped beak in addition to the horns. So like Protoceratops is an earlier ceratopsian, and it doesn't have horns, but it does have the rest of the distinct Triceratops-style face, but no two major horns coming off the forehead.
Yeah.
So the functions of these facial horns have long been up for debate. They were traditionally viewed as defensive weapons, but recent interpretations find it more likely that they were used in identification, courtship, oh baby, a display of dominance, and
what, you're taking my old
like
babies
I mentioned,
now?
herd protection. By 1900, more than 30 Triceratops skulls had already been found. So keep that in mind.
Yeah.
30 Triceratops skulls by 1900. That's a lot when we're talking about dinosaurs.
It is.
Triceratops is found mainly in the North American regions, especially in the American West. And we have several samples of Triceratops skin that has been found and totally preserved, which is super badass.
Now, how is that?
Good fucking question. So much of this shit that I'm going to tell you today is over my head, including words that I don't know what they mean.
Yeah. The fact that skin can survive millions of years, tens of millions of years, hundreds of millions of years, that's incredible.
And just think about the odds. How many Triceratops were alive over however many millions of years? Probably billions and billions and billions of Triceratops. We probably have 100 fossils. We have 3 pieces of skin. That's all that's left.
Yeah.
All that's left of this animal that existed for that long. It's nuts.
Yeah.
I happen to know that Triceratops is a personal favorite of Nikki's.
How do you happen to know that? Have I said that before?
I think you've told me that before.
Yeah. Triceratops is my second favorite dinosaur.
Hot take.
So I don't know if this is in your notes, but I read somewhere, I think it's the Triceratops. I might be thinking of another one, but I think it's the Triceratops. That in pop culture, especially Jurassic Park, among other things, Land Before Time, you often see the Triceratops pitted against the Tyrannosaurus Rex. That's kind of like one of the classic dinosaur rivalries, right? That you see depicted in film and other things. But it's actually, they didn't overlap in existence. The Triceratops and the T-Rex are further apart than we are to the T-Rex.
Yeah.
That's mind-blowing.
Yeah, that's true. So if they spanned 190 million years, many of the creatures we'll talk about today. So T-Rex was alive at the very, very end of the reign of the dinos. So many of the early dinosaurs are up to almost 3 times as far away in time as we are from T-Rex, which is wild.
Yeah, it is wild.
What's wild is you taking another guess up our list here.
Well, before I do, what do you think of the Triceratops?
I like Triceratops, but not one of my favorites.
Right. Well, we all have bad takes sometimes, Buster. That's okay. Nick here with a quick interruption to tell you about our next partner, Athletic Greens. I started taking AG1 by Athletic Greens because I wanted a supplement that actually tastes great. As you know, that's not the easiest thing to find. But so many people kept recommending AG1, so I finally gave it a try. Now, I take AG1 every single morning. It feels good knowing I'm covering my nutritional bases in the morning, and it helps me feel prepared for the day ahead. Like many of you listening right now, I was initially hesitant to start taking AG1. It's hard to know where to start with supplements and who to trust, but AG1 makes that so much easier. Very quickly, I noticed that it helps me feel more energized throughout the day, and I just generally feel better too. I know the little body elves living inside me are so grateful that I began taking AG1. And your body elves are craving AG1 as well, so give it to them. It's just 1 scoop of powder mixed with water once a day. That's it. Every scoop is packed with 75 vitamins, minerals, and whole food sourced ingredients of the highest quality that give me major benefits like gut and mood support, boosted energy, and even healthier looking skin, hair, and nails. Oh, baby. It's the healthiest thing you can do in just under a minute. My AG1 is delivered to me every month, so it's been super easy to make it a daily habit. So I'm asking you to join me on this journey to better health. Athletic Greens is giving you a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase of AG1. Go to athleticgreens.com/tennish. That's athleticgreens.com/10ish. AG1 by Athletic Greens will not only support your health, but it will support the show, Tennish Podcast. So check it out. That's athleticgreens.com/tennish, or just check the show notes for a direct link.
Priceline presents Go to Your Happy Price. What's up? It's Kaylee Cuoco. When it comes to travel, we all have a happy place. You can see yourself already there. It's beautiful. It might be sunny and sandy for some, neon and urban for others, deserts or rainforests or hiking trails. With Priceline, you can get to your happy place for a happy price with deals you really can't find anywhere else. Like up to 60% off select hotels to Costa Rica or 5-star hotels for 2-star prices in Cabo. Go to Priceline.com and travel to your happy place for a happy price. All right, see ya. I'm off to Miami. No, actually, wow, look at that. No, I'm going to Hawaii now. Ooh, Cancun looks nice. You know what? Belize looks pretty nice this time of year. Or, Palm Springs.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
As if the McCrispy couldn't get any better, Bacon and Ranch just entered the chat. The Bacon Ranch McCrispy, available at participating McDonald's for a limited time. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Well, the Tyrannosaurus Rex family, I'm going to say they're on here, and I'm trying to think I wonder if a T-Rex or a Triceratops weighs more. Probably a Triceratops, right? I don't know.
So this is on average size, so that'd be length, not weight.
Oh, it's length, okay. Then the T-Rex is bigger.
Dinosaurs are measured in length.
Yeah, right, because we don't know their weight. Good point. So, yes, I'm going to...
And it's very rude to ask a dinosaur's weight, actually, if we're trying to be considerate.
It's very rude for you to interrupt me while I'm making a guess, actually.
It's one of my favorite pastimes, so I will continue to do it.
That I believe. Number 4 is the Tyrannosaurus Rex.
After 200 episodes, I wish you were better. Not number 4. It is number 2.
I knew it.
Number 2, the Theropods. And we're not talking about Mini-Me. A theropod.
Wow.
That's a deep cut reference to Austin Powers Gold member. Theropods is the dinosaur clad characterized by hollow bones, 3 toes, and 3, or I think they either have 3 fingers or 2 fingers.
So which is it, Buster? 3 or 2?
On each limb. I think they can have both.
Wow.
Some of the members of the theropod group are Carnotaurus, which is the main bad villain in the Disney Pixar movie Dinosaur. Allosaurus, which is like a small T-Rex.
Mm-hmm.
Compsognathid, which is the compy you mentioned from the very beginning of the second Jurassic World. And Ceratosaurus, which is a mini T-Rex that has a horn on the front of its face, much like a rhinoceros. Featured in the third Jurassic Park movie, when the guy's covered in shit and he's looking for the cell phone, and the Ceratosaurus comes up, smells him, and gets the heck out of there because it's Spinosaurus poo.
So in Jurassic Park 3, they changed the main villain dinosaur from the Tyrannosaurus Rex, which is the poster child of dinosaurs, I'd say. T-Rex is the most famous dinosaur. Mostly started with Jurassic Park, although it's been famous for a long time. But I was pretty peeved, even as a kid, that they betrayed the T-Rex in favor of the Spinosaurus. Because I was loyal to the T-Rex, and I know that there's been research come out lately that they actually, some of the conceptions about the T-Rex they think might be misconceptions, may have been more of a scavenger than a hunter, things like that. Those are theories. I don't care. I'm sticking with my childhood memories of the T-Rex. He's the biggest badass in the dinosaur, in the animal kingdom, in the history of the world. T-Rex is the apex predator of all apex predators. In my mind.
Don't worry, we'll be getting to why that hot take is severely wrong, and we'll judge you up and down for having it. Interestingly enough, theropods still exist by their full classification. The largest current theropod is the ostrich, measuring up to 9 feet tall and weighing about 250 pounds.
That's it.
Which makes sense. I mean, it legitimately walks like a T-Rex.
Yeah, and it fucks like a T-Rex too.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some Tennis Pod Plus content we can put out.
I remember hearing that the chicken, the modern day chicken, is the closest living relative to the Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Yeah. So, theropods now we're starting to think they had feathers or feather-like structures in these creatures. Many of them were smaller species, but we still had things like T-Rex, Spinosaurus in this group. Other theropods, their skin was covered in small, bumpy scales. They had shortened forelimbs, which people make fun of T-Rex for all the time. But guess what? When you've got a jaw with the crushing power of a metal compactor, you don't need arms when your face is a haunted house of death.
But what if he has an itch on his face, Buster? That's what I've always wondered. If he has an itch, he's got to really rub his face on the ground or something to get at it.
Rub it on a tree.
Well, he could get splinters.
Short forelimbs is not a universal trait of theropods. So Spinosaurus had well-developed forelimbs, as well as one called a Coelurosaurus. The forearms on the Spinosaurus and the Coelurosaurus were so robust, they thought that sometimes they might have even walked on 4 legs for a short amount of time. But most of the time they were up on 2 legs.
When you're saying that, it makes me think about how, we'll never really know. Because we'll never see, well, I say that, we'll probably never see a real-life, walking, breathing dinosaur to study it. But, I know there's billionaires out there trying to do basically what they did in Jurassic Park.
Please, if you're listening, just tell me where to donate money. Just come on. Have my child's college account. I don't give a shit. If you're going to bring dinosaurs back, I will pay you whatever. I'll do anything.
So Buster's not donating his time and money to, feeding starving children in Africa or saving life-saving research for Alzheimer's. Buster's donating his time and money to dinosaurs being reborn unnaturally.
If it doesn't ultimately bring back live dinosaurs in my own lifespan, I don't want to talk about it.
Tell me this, just a yes or no prediction. In the next 1,000 years, will someone basically recreate a dinosaur?
Yes.
Okay. I think you're right.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're right. 1,000 years is a long time in human history.
Sadly, I don't think it'll happen in our lifespan.
I don't know if that is sad. Because, I can't imagine this dinosaur that's reanimated has a good life ahead of it.
Okay, so here's a big question that I think is very interesting. And you probably already know my answer based on the last 2 minutes of this conversation. In talks all around the world right now about conservation, there's a tug of war between giving natural habitat back to predators and big animals versus the convenience and the economic impacts it will have on human beings. Here in Wisconsin, that heated debate is around elk and wolf populations. People don't want wolves for reasons. People do want as many wolves as possible for reasons. Would you entertain the notion of reintroducing dinosaurs wild back onto planet Earth?
No.
I say hell yes. Whatever economic disparity comes of it. Okay, listen. Yeah, are people going to die? Yeah.
Okay, so Buster's 4 people dying.
Do people die in car accidents? Yeah. You don't see us outlawing cars. I
think we should. I think we should all be riding those donkeys full time. You don't need cars. You got a donkey.
Some things are worth the cost. There's a trade-off.
What is the trade-off? Just being able to study dinosaurs and being able to look out your window and say, oh, cool, dinosaur? I don't know if that's worth it.
Hell, yes. Are you telling me that if you had a self-contained continent like Australia in which dinosaurs were roaming free, you wouldn't want to go visit?
Okay, so I think you could reintroduce dinosaurs into the wild as long as it's somewhere very remote, not anywhere near civilization.
As Dr. Ian Malcolm would say, life finds a way. There's no way you can contain them.
Well, that's why I say no.
I say yes. Whatever the cost.
Just because it's cool? Is that the reason?
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Because that seems irresponsible.
It is irresponsible.
It'd be cool to, build a volcano that I could watch erupt out my window that's a safe distance from me, but it's not practical because people are going to die.
You know what else is irresponsible? Thousands of things that human beings do every single day, but they do them anyway. Why? Because they want to.
So this one seems easily avoidable, but...
I'm not saying we have to reintroduce T-Rex into the plains of Nebraska.
Well, according to your dumbass, T-Rex is really not that big and bad anyway, so why not?
But we could start small, like a handful of small herbivores. And just to know that they were out there repopulating, it was like, oh, that's so cool.
I mean, it's cool, sure. And in an alternate universe, I don't know if I can support it. And I do acknowledge that if this did happen and dinosaurs were reintroduced into modern times, it's not going to be it's not necessarily going to be like Jurassic Park where they get loose and just start killing everybody in sight, right? They're just going to be like animals today. Like if you fuck with a lion, you might get killed, but how often are you really going to fuck with a lion? Lions are going to leave you alone for the most part. So it'd be like that, but still, I don't know. And then what does reintroducing dinosaurs do to animal populations around the world right now?
Yeah, it would be very unfortunate. It would offset the entire food chain. And it'd probably be it'd be like a little biological nuclear bomb to the way food chains operate
Buster
today.
thinks we should do it though, because it'd be cool. He wants that animal food chain nuclear bomb to happen.
Oh my God. Okay, maybe I could settle for a Jurassic Park style place where I could go see them, even though they were in confinement, and I'd feel guilty for them. Oh, just to see.
Well, do you feel guilty for the animals at the zoo?
Yeah, well, I do.
I do too,
yeah.
but it'd be the same thing.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Oh, but it's like a real life Triceratops herd, dude.
No, it'd be badass.
Words don't even come close to describing.
No.
That severe carnal love for dinosaurs is what brought me to this list today. Gander us another guess.
The family that the Stegosaurus belongs to.
The Stegosaurs, aptly named.
Huh.
What number do you think?
4.
Ding, ding, ding. You've guessed 4 for every guess today, and you finally hit the nail on the head.
I have, haven't I?
The number 4 group is Stegosaurs. Poster child, Stegosaurus and Kentrosaurus. What's interesting about Kentrosaurus, in addition to the spines down the back, people may know this one, it's smaller, probably about half to a third the size of a full-grown Stegosaurus, but Kentrosaurus also has 2 very long spikes sticking off of its hip bones, so they're actually pointing out in a 45-degree direction.
Yeah, so they're literally like a walking, what are those little like spiky seeds you get on your socks sometimes when you walk through like a heavily wooded area? That's their body. It's just one of those.
Yeah, it's true. I mean,
that's why I said it.
A totally vamped up version of a porcupine.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't know this, but the spikes are not attached on the Stegosaur family. Those spikes all up and down the back and the side are only attached to the skin, not any skeletal function. So like if a Stegosaurus was drying off and shook its back, those fins, those giant spikes would rock back and forth because they're attached to the skin.
They wouldn't rock back and forth. They'd wobble around like you were shaking a ball sack around it because they
like a ball
They
sack.
would. That's kind of interesting. Like I wonder, like, doesn't it make more sense for it to be attached to the skeleton? Just like a Triceratops horn?
Evolutionarily speaking, whatever made more sense is what ended up happening.
Yeah.
Now, so these Stegosaurus plates, they're called dermal plates. They Stegosaurus tended to have between 17 and 22 separate plates and flat spines. They're highly modified osteoderms, which means a bony cord scale. So it's a giant exterior scale on every side. It has a bone in the middle, but it's just flopping around there on the skin. Similar to those seen in crocodiles and many lizards today. The other calling card of the Stegosaur group is something called the scientific term, the thagomizer, which is the 4-pronged, up-facing spikes on the end of a Stegosaurus tail. That's the thagomizer.
That's the thing we were talking about earlier, right? That's connected to the skin?
No, so those are the plates along the back.
Oh, I thought you meant...
This is the giant spiked 4-pronged thing along the end of the tail.
Yeah, for some reason, that's what I thought you were talking about before with the skin. So you're saying...
I think the thagomizer is actually connected to the bone in the tail.
Gotcha. But the
giant fins along the back are just attached to the skin.
Just the skin, yeah. I'm with you now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My last note about Stegosaurus is unlike many of the species we'll talk about today, they weren't very centrally located. Animals in the Stegosaur family have been found in North America, Europe, Africa, South America, and Asia, which means after Pangea split, multiple different types of Stegosaurus evolved separately and maintained their structure.
Gotcha.
Which is rare, because most of the time they'll end up developing into totally different species.
Yeah. We've talked a lot today about the future of humans and what the Earth will look like in 1 billion years and all that. It's also true that the continent structure on Earth will be completely different by that time too. We've had to make all new maps, Buster.
All new maps. The Rocky Mountains are shrinking every year as we speak. The plates are pulling apart there at the fault line. Eventually, people will have to remove the Rocky Mountains from their maps.
Makes you wonder, why even bother making maps then today if it's all just going to be for
Why use
nothing?
maps? You can just look out your window. I see a damn mountain, bub. I don't need no piece of paper telling me that there's a mountain there.
I don't know how anybody drove anywhere before GPS. Like, just can't picture that.
I remember printing out MapQuest directions when I first got my license.
But even that, they used to not use MapQuest either.
Well, yeah. You would call up your cousin who'd been to that city once, and he's like, yeah, turn left at the McDonald's, go 6.5 miles, turn right at County Road K. And it's like,
and if you can't find it, there ain't no cell phone either to call them up and be like, hey, I can't find it. You got to pull over. Shit's
you're
wild,
pulling over
man.
to a gas station, talking to God knows who at whatever hour of the night, who may or may not have a good means to tell you the right directions or not. Maybe you want to end up back in their house in 4 pieces in their freezer.
See, this is why we need to ride the donkeys instead of cars, because the donkeys go at such a speed that it's slow enough to where you can kind of fully digest your surroundings without being too hasty and missing a vital turn in your directions.
This is true. We can live life at a slower, more digestible pace on the back of a donkey.
Okay. You can repeat everything I say, or...
Now, speaking of digestible, why don't you take a good old munch at another guess here?
I'll take a T-Rex-sized bite out of this list. I know what number 1 is. Pretty confident in that. So, trying to think of what's left. Obviously, okay, pterodactyl is going to be near the bottom, I'd say 6 maybe.
I was thinking about adding it to the list, but technically it's not a dinosaur because it's not a land-roaming terrestrial creature that has one of 2 hip configurations. There's a very specific... I know it's annoying science jargon, but no flying animals on the list are not dinosaurs.
Well, that's fucking stupid. So, everyone listening, join me in throwing a middle finger up to Dr. Buster and his nerd.
The birds, you bitch.
Well, what the fuck is left then? So there's sea creatures then. No sea creatures either. No sea dinosaurs.
You can see that that's true because they're not land roaming animals. You got corn in your ears?
Wow.
All right.
Well, hell,
Nick.
there ain't no more dinosaurs left then besides number 1.
Nick, some people might say, now it's not true. Okay? I'm not saying I would disagree with it. But some people might say that you're a little hard to get along with.
Ankylosaurus.
Right? You're a little thick-skulled. Sometimes it can take a lot to get something into your fucking thick-skulled head.
I don't know anyone that's ever said that.
What dinosaur had a really thick head and you might have belonged to this fossil group when they find your remains?
Because my brain is so big that it needs a big, giant, hard head to protect it, I agree. And that's the... what's he fucking called? The one that rams his head into shit. That dinosaur.
The one that rams its head into shit is number 7. You got it.
Can't think of its name.
Pachycephalosaurs. Poster children of this group, the Pachycephalosaurus, obvi, and the Homalocephalae. My flashbulb memory for the Pachycephalosaurus is the guy with the beard, the cowboy hat, and the glasses in The Lost World, the second Jurassic Park movie, when he's trying to explain what the Pachycephalosaurus is and does, and then he rams that guy through the Jeep and he falls out the other side.
Yeah. Imagine evolving. Like, you look around, you're a dinosaur, you're a Pachycephalosaur or whatever, and you look around, you're seeing the T-Rex with the all-time largest, most powerful jaws in the world. And you look at the Triceratops, and he's got these long, beautiful, threatening horns. You look at the Stegosaurus, he's got this weapon on the end of his tail that's going to intimidate any dinosaur. And then your job is to just ram your head as hard as you can into everything you see.
It's unfortunate because you have to risk the most vulnerable part of yourself, your head and your neck, in order to use your defense mechanism.
Yeah.
It's all or nothing.
For this dinosaur, his most vulnerable is not his head and neck.
When you turn tail to run, you're exposing that booty hole. So they can get you on the run too if you don't
Get you on the run.
lay him out.
At least in Jurassic Park, he's fast and he's powerful and he's going to get you. You're not going to outrun his ass.
Yeah.
And your ass is going to get a full booty's worth of rock hard skull.
And they used their head. They were fond of using it. So pachycephalosaurs were exclusive to the northern hemisphere, all of them being found in North America and Asia to date. They were bipedal, up on two legs. They were omnivorous animals with thick skulls. Pachycephalosaurs could have all different shapes of head. They could be domed, flat, or wedge-shaped depending on the different species.
So could I, depending on the night of the week. Am I right?
Good one. And these domes were heavily ossified, so they're super thick and heavy. The domes were often surrounded by smaller nodes and spikes.
Buster, hang on. I'm confused. Can you clarify? Were their heads really thick or not?
Partial skeletons have been found of several pachycephalosaur, but none to date have been discovered that was a complete skeleton.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
That's the other amazing thing is so many of these famous dinosaurs we can all picture in our heads right now, there's not even a complete skeleton of them in existence.
We'll talk about one later today that all we know of it are its different pieces of its jaw and its teeth. The rest had to be guessed and surmised from the facial shape.
Wow. And it also makes you remember, or makes me think about the fact that there's dinosaurs that are incredible that we haven't even discovered yet, or may never discover because...
Yeah. It's so true. The whole thing is super neat, and we're just beginning to learn. We're finding new species every year.
Right.
So it's cool. All right, you've got 3 categories to recap. Number 7, pachycephalosaurs. Number 5, ceratopsians. Number 4, stegosaurs. And number 2, theropods, the big bad 2-legged baddies.
Baddies.
So you mentioned another type of heavily armored dinosaur.
Yeah, Ankylosaurus.
The Ankylosaurus is number 6.
I knew it.
Number 6, because many of their members tended to be kind of small, even though Ankylosaurus himself was pretty big.
He's the one that looks like a walking tank. He has the really heavy, like kind of turtle-like shell with spikes coming off it, a club on his tail that he'd get you with.
Big old club tail, looks like 2 apples tied around a stick, which the club on the end of the tail, I think, weighs itself probably hundreds of pounds and can be swung with extreme force.
Kind of like your ass.
Yep. Much like my nutsack. All ankylosaurians had armor over much of their bodies, including scutes and nodules and large spines. In all 3 groups, the first 2 rows of plates tended to form a sort of half ring around the neck. So, I mean, these guys were plated. What is that phrase? Nuts to soup. I mean, they head to toe, they were covered
Nuts to soup.
in armor. In addition, the skull also had armor on it, including a very thick top part of the skull and a distinctive piece on the outside rear of the lower jaw. So they even had armor on the bottom of their jaw line. So
Yeah. If it's so effective to have this armor, then how come other vulnerable dinosaurs didn't develop armor of some
because
sort?
they developed their own survival situation, being fast, flying, being so big you can't be eaten,
Yes.
being so annoying that no one wants to be around you. That tends to be your defense mechanism.
Yeah. But it makes... because there are dinosaurs that, sure, they can run fast or they're small so they can hide, but they don't got fucking armor on them. Armor seems like the ultimate. That's like the top one.
Sure, but you're slow. And if they can get past your only defense, which is your armor, you're screwed.
How are they going to get past that armor? Could a T-Rex bite through it?
I don't know. I'm sure they had weak points, like maybe if they flipped them over and could get at their stomach.
It's like you. When we flip you over and you're on your back, you're like a turtle that can't get up.
I mean, turtle's a perfect example. A turtle is great until it's not.
Turtle doesn't have a club on its tail.
Last
Or
note.
its dick.
Last note on the Ankylosaurus, their broad muzzle indicated it was a non-picky browser. The sinuses and nasal chambers in the snout may have also been used for heat and water balance or played a role in strong vocalization.
Strong vocalization.
Which I think is interesting.
That reminds me, because modern turtles also have vocalization to tell each other that they're ready to have a date night, you know?
They do? Is this a real thing?
Yeah, I'm remembering something. It's in my library of hashtag Nick's notes somewhere, but turtles they're vocal when they're doing it. And when they're mating.
I found my new thing I'm going to listen to help me get sleepy at night. I'm going to look up tortoises capitulating, or What is it? Fornicating.
Well, normally at night, I just listen to the Tennis Podcast episodes that you are on, and I usually fall asleep pretty quick.
All right. You got 2 groups left. You know what number 1 is.
Yeah.
Now,
what about the duck-bill dinosaurs?
Ding, ding.
Number 3. I'm surprised that's bigger than Stegosaurus and Triceratops, though.
Well, if you were a little bit more of a dinosaur nerd, you'd know how many Stegosaurus-like dinosaurs there were that were a lot smaller. The thing about duck-billed dinos is most of them were about the same size. So they didn't have any small runt bitches weighing down the overall average size of the category.
Well, you got to talk about our listeners like that.
So coming in at number 3 is the ornithopods. Ornithopods, also known as the duck-billed dinosaurs, including poster children like Parasaurolophus, which is the main one people think about with Jurassic Park, the duck-billed dinosaur with the very long horn crest thing coming off the back of the head. Edmontosaurus, which is Ducky from Land Before Time, just a regular duck-billed dinosaur with no head crest. And the Iguanodon, which is the main character, the protagonist group in the Disney Pixar movie Dinosaur, where he grows up with lemurs.
That is like the forgotten Disney animated movie, isn't it? I never hear it.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard anyone talk about that besides you, but I've watched it.
Yeah, I love that movie.
Yeah.
That was my go-to jam as a kid.
Now, I don't think it was as good as Land Before Time, though.
That's true. I agree with that. Interesting note, duck-billed dinosaurs are pretty much only found in North America. They were very heavily isolated to this part of the world.
There's been several dinosaurs we've talked about today that were found in North America, which is interesting, right? Because you'd think it's kind of a little more diversified, but...
So I want to come back to that awesome book recommendation, The Rise and Fall of Dinosaurs. Why we know so much more about dinosaurs that happen to live in North America is a fossil sampling bias. Because of things like the Rocky Mountains, the Badlands, the Grand Canyon, these topographical, geographical locations make it easy to get fossils. There's just as dense of an offering of different dinosaur species all around the planet, but we can't access them as easy. So those are the fossils that have yet to be discovered.
Gotcha.
There's all kinds of dinosaurs out there in South America, Asia, Africa, we haven't discovered yet because they don't have Grand Canyon-like places that are so easy to go and find dinosaur bones in. So there is a North American-centric feel to dinosaurs, including T-Rex, just because we happen to have such readily available access to dinosaurs who lived here, like T-Rex, Edmontosaurus, Triceratops, and the like.
Interesting.
Which is neat. So it ends up making North American-centric dinosaurs more popular and well-known, even though it's just a sampling bias. Now, we talked about spikes, we talked about clubs, speed, size. Little did you know, the ornithopods get the last laugh. Their major evolutionary advantage was a progressive development of a chewing apparatus that became the most sophisticated ever developed by a non-avian dinosaur, rivaling that of modern animals such as the domestic cow. Are you impressed at the evolutionary prowess here?
This is what I was talking about. Wouldn't you rather have armor if you're that duck-billed dinosaur? Like, who gives a fuck?
Well, apparently it's the way they chew on shit.
I thought their evolutionary advantage was they could do great selfies with their duck face. No, that's okay. You don't have to like it, but I know the listeners are enjoying it. You're welcome.
This is another prolific type of dinosaur group. Members have currently been found on all 7 continents. So that's wild because some of the features we talked about today did not continue going after Pangea split. Which means, funny or not, there's something about this duck-bill design, their size, their speed, and this chewing advantage that somehow actually was a legitimate winning solution. Because there's duck-billed dinos on all 7 continents, or there were.
That chewing advantage, to me, in my non-expert, observation, would mean that they were able to kind of find food to eat no matter where they were.
Yeah. And much like myself, the duck-billed dinosaurs got very used to eating while being bent over, which apparently was an evolutionary advantage to them as well. Many of the dinosaurs couldn't do that. They ran on 4 legs, but they could stand up on 2 legs and were comfortable doing so to reach up into the trees, but they spent most of the time on all 4s, kind of like bears.
Or my first wife.
Got him again. Hey, it's Dr. Buster here. As the rightful host of Tennis Podcast, I've decided to grant listeners like you ad-free access to all of our and Nick's episodes. Hey, not just ad-free, but also early. You can listen to new Tennis Podcast episodes before anyone else. Come on. Can you say the word exclusive? Still not intrigued? Okay, well, how about new bonus episodes every month? Like the top 10 most popular Cartoon Network shows, the top true crime cases of 2021, or a draft of Seinfeld characters, which I thoroughly enjoyed, and dozens more. All these precious perks and more are available right now to Tennis Pod Plus members. Signing up takes maybe 90 seconds. Just go to tennispod.com/PLUS. Or if you're an Apple Podcast listener, get a free 7-day trial in literally one tap at the top of our Apple Podcast page. I mean, if we made it any easier, it'd be a crime. No matter how you sign up, our ad-free and bonus content works on your favorite podcast app. So, no extra apps or steps needed. It literally couldn't be easier. If Dr. Buster can do it, you can do it. If you never, ever want to hear an ad like this one again, or any ad for that matter, then booty clap on over to Tennis Pod Plus today. Escape the ads and escape Dr. Buster, because Lord knows you don't want to hear this voice much more than you have to.
Mobile phone companies say they offer home internet. But if their internet comes from a cell phone network, you should know. It's just phone internet, not home internet. Keep your home up to speed with Cox. Cox Internet is faster and has more reliable download speeds than 5G home internet. Cox is the real home internet you're looking for. Based on Cox analysis of Ookla speed test intelligence data Q3 2022 and Cox serviceable areas, visit cox.com/internet for details. Mobile phone companies say they offer home internet. But if their internet comes from a cell phone network, you should know. It's just phone internet, not home internet. Keep your home up to speed with Cox. Cox Internet is faster and has more reliable download speeds than 5G home internet. Cox is the real home internet you're looking for. Based on Cox analysis of Ookla speed test intelligence data Q3 2022 and Cox serviceable areas, visit cox.com/internet for details.
So Nick, you know them, you love them, you've known who they were from the start. Who's our number one big ol' honkin' biggest group of dinosaurs here?
All right, well, number one is the Brachiosaurus, or the long-neck dinosaur, as he's known. He or she is known.
Sauropods, with famous members such as Brachiosaurus, Diplodocus, and Apatosaurus.
Yep, and again, just to reiterate, these are the ones with the super long necks. He's also Littlefoot in Land Before Time I think he's a Brachiosaurus.
He
might have been an
Apatosaurus.
Yeah.
Yep. Which, for people who grew up thinking that Brontosaurus was a dinosaur, get out of here, you idiots! That's a misnomer. There is not actually a dinosaur called Brontosaurus, which, hey, I'm going to divulge. I myself was in that group, but when I got older, I learned that that's actually the Apatosaurus. But then the Brachiosaur...
Why are you dinosaur shaming our listeners?
Of the sauropod. They had tiny heads, massive bodies, most had very long tails. The hind legs were thick, straight, and powerful, ending in club-like feet with 5 toes. Damn, this is my first Y. Though only...
That's mine. That's my joke. You're going to have to find a new joke. Sorry.
Though only the inner 3 toes bore claws. Which is interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. I wonder why.
Their major evolutionary advantage? Get big as shit so nothing can eat you. And then as long as you're that big, it doesn't matter what comes after that.
I'm looking at a scaled picture of the various sauropods, size-wise, compared to a human and an elephant. Even the smallest sauropod is twice the size of an elephant. And the biggest is, I don't know, maybe 6 times the size of an elephant. So they're big.
All right, folks, if you've ever been in the presence of an elephant, either in the wild or at a zoo, elephants reach lengths of 24 feet. 24. I just mentioned that Diplodocus, the longest sauropod, 112 feet. Wow. Truly unfathomable.
It's like a walking blue whale.
Yes. Currently, the tallest animal we have roaming the land is a giraffe, usually around 17 feet tall. Brachiosaurus was 72 feet.
Wow.
Brachiosaurus, for those who may not have as in-depth knowledge of dinosaurs, if you've seen Jurassic Park, it's the very first dinosaur they see in the park, the very long neck dinosaur standing up, reaching to the very tippy top of the trees.
This dinosaur is big, and it can reach leaves in the trees and stuff. I know that's an advantage. But I don't know if being big is really that big of an advantage, because if you get bit by a T-Rex, I mean, you're still going to bleed and get hurt.
It's like you getting a scrape or a cut. It's small enough on you that it's not a fatal wound.
Okay, Brachiosaurus expert over here, I guess. I didn't realize you were a fucking paleontologist, Buster.
Here's something I learned from that book that I've recommended a couple of times, and this is super fascinating. When people were first discovering sauropods, they didn't know mechanically how an animal could support a neck of that weight.
Yeah.
They later figured out sauropods had a system of independent air sacs that made their bones up to 90% hollow, and these hollow cavities extended up the neck vertebrae, and this is what allowed for them to have such a long neck, long tail. Their bones were hollow, extremely hollow, more hollow than other subgroups of dinosaurs. So if you compared that, like a brachiosaur weighed far less than it should have because its bones were extremely hollow, especially in the neck. These very hollow bones are a primary characteristic feature of sauropods. The air sacs reduced the overall weight of the massive neck, and it allowed for single direction airflow through the stiff lungs. Also, sauropods had these really unique lungs that didn't budge and flex as much, so the weight and pressure couldn't constrict. You know, like if a human goes too far down in the ocean, the pressure from the water will cause you to suffocate because your lungs can't inflate.
Yeah.
Sauropods' lungs, they weren't flexible. They were like rock hard. So no matter how big, fat, strong, heavy they got, it didn't matter. Their lungs couldn't be compressed. So these
How the fuck do they know that? I mean, I know they have their ways, but like I can't think of how they could possibly know that.
So these rock hard lungs and hollow neck bones are what allowed them to be so big. It's just super cool.
It is cool, and you mentioned like how big and fat they could get. A fat Bronchiosaurus is a funny visual.
Well, I think that's very judgmental of you and not very kind.
Okay. All right, that's fair. That's fair. I like the long neck dinosaurs, but they're not my favorite. They're fine.
Yeah, I would agree. My wife's favorite dinosaur is the Parasaurolophus. That's the ornithopod, the duck-billed dinosaur with the crest off the back.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a sucker for Deinonychus, which is what people typically think of when they think of Velociraptor. It really was 6.5 feet tall. The true Velociraptor was only about 3 feet tall. Right. It was more like a turkey size.
Why do you think they did that in Jurassic Park? Like, why not? Because Velociraptor is a cooler word?
I think, yeah, it was the marketing. You know, it's harder to say Deinonychus when you're a little kid.
Well, here's an idea, paleontologist. Stop naming these fucking dinosaurs words that no one can say.
Yeah, right.
Seriously.
Oh, yeah. Well,
think about it. All the most famous poster dinosaurs, like Tyrannosaurus Rex, Triceratops, Stegosaurus, they all have relatively easy names to say.
Right. Versus dolphin, honeybee.
Yeah.
Fox.
Yeah. Well, even Tyrannosaurus Rex is simpler than some of the ones, I can't even say those words that you were saying.
We're about to get into some heavy, big old names, but first let's do a recap. Number 7, Pachycephalosaurs, dome-headed, ram shit with their head. Probably more along the size of a modern-day deer. Number 6, Ankylosaurus, armored tanks, big old club tail. Number 5, Ceratopsians, Triceratops, large frilled faces, giant megahorns protruding off. I mean, tank size, bigger than the biggest SUVs we have now. Number 4, Stegosaurus, plates along the back, large triangular plates, and then 4-pronged spikes coming off the tail. Also huge. 3, Ornithopods, duck-billed dinosaurs like Edmontosaurus, Parasaurolophus.
Ducky in Land Before Time.
Ducky in Land Before Time. Number 2, Theropods. That's the big old baddies. T-Rex, the Velociraptor, the Allosaurus, big old meat eaters, haunted house attached to their face. And number 1, biggest of them all, the sauropods, long-necked dinosaur, Brachiosaur, Diplodocus, Apatosaurus, what we might call as children the Brontosaurs.
Which one was the one that you said all they found is like a jawbone?
We're getting to that. What an interesting segue, folks. We didn't plan that in advance.
Okay.
My second list, which is going to be shorter here, the 5 largest theropods. These are all T-Rex-like dinosaurs.
Oh, okay.
This is an interesting list. It'll drive home some of these marketing and palatable things that we've been talking about and how dinosaurs get to be popular, even though they're not the biggest and the baddest.
I refuse to accept that. Even if it's true, I just won't accept it.
These are the top 5 carnivorous bipedal upright dinosaurs, including the T-Rex. I'll give you a hint, Nick, which you've probably already guessed. T-Rex is not number 1.
It's number 2, I think.
Is T-Rex going to be your first guess?
Well, hang on. Interesting. I believe theropod is the only fossil group that had carnivores in it. Is that right?
It is, yeah. So everything else was an omnivore, but if they were a carnivore, then they were a theropod, which means they're in the dinosaur evolution line, there were no 4-legged carnivores. Yeah, you're right.
So basically, I'm a paleontologist now.
There you go.
All right, well, since it's not number 1, yeah, let's do the Tyrannosaurus Rex. I'm going to say he's number 2 on the top 5 largest theropods.
You're wrong. Coming in at number 4.
Knew it.
At an average length of 39 feet.
39 feet. So if the tallest human ever, I don't know, probably 8 feet tall, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if a human was laying down 8 feet tall, you'd have
5
of
them.
Mm-hmm. To get to a T-Rex.
Tyrannosaurus Rex is huge. Now, not as big as portrayed in Jurassic Park, but number 2 on this list is as big as T-Rex. But because this other dinosaur is not from North America, it doesn't get the same amount of stage time, which is interesting. One of the reasons why we love T-Rex and we think he is the king despite being number 4 in his own category is the amount of skeletons found. Again, earlier we talked about North America just happens to have great geography for finding dinosaur skeletons. In the 1960s alone, 42 different independent T-Rex skeletons were found, and to date, over 300 various T-Rex skeletons have been discovered. Some of them more than 85% complete. That's wild. Number 3 on this list that we're about to talk about, we've only found 3 pieces of its jaw. That's it.
Is part of the reason that we found so many T-Rexes that they're so recent compared to other dinosaurs? Because they came at the very end of the dinosaur period.
Yes, part of it is also the recency. So T-Rex was around right there at the last great extinction, so there's less time that the fossils have been able to degenerate. They also happen to only inhabit North America. T-Rex was only North America. Just happens to be that popular fossil bed area to excavate.
And number 1 reason is they're the biggest and the baddest no matter what propaganda you try to tell me.
Well, we can leave that for another time in debate, but just know, and it was covered in my book recommendation, super interesting chapter about why people love T-Rex so much, and it really is a marketing thing. We have so many fossils, they're all over the world because there's so many of them, and were made famous in movies by directors who just happen to be making films in Hollywood located in the same country where T-Rex was found. So it just happened to be a big popular boy.
Okay, T-Rex is my personal favorite, but I'm going to give you another guess. I'm going to guess the Spinosaurus is number 1 or 2.
There you go. A correct guess. Spinosaurus numero uno, the biggest and baddest of them all. Spinosaurus known to have eaten fish, and most scientists believe that it hunted both terrestrial and aquatic environments.
That's why he's not the baddest to me, because he's just fishing most of the time. He's not going after the big hunt.
But much longer than T-Rex, much bigger than T-Rex.
I didn't realize size was everything.
44 feet long, much longer than T-Rex. Had a huge sail on its back. It had a long, muscular neck and a curved S shape leading up to the skull. And it had much larger hands and forearms as compared to the T-Rex. And like you said, I remember going with friends to the opening weekend of Jurassic Park 3 for my birthday. And not only did they kill the T-Rex off as their main villain and superstar
in like
of the
30-second fight, by the way. They really shit on the T-Rex in that movie.
It was a very brief fight, and it was in the first 15 minutes. They couldn't even draw it out. I mean, they literally were like, out with the old, in with the new.
They were really trying to establish the Spinosaurus as the new big bad. And I get that you got to keep things fresh, but I don't know. Everybody likes the T-Rex. We didn't have to change it.
So Spinosaurus was relatively not well known until about 2006. And since 2006, they found 6 additional specimens. But before that, relatively not much was known about it, and probably why it wasn't much in our pop culture yet.
Yeah. Well, I'd say it's still not really. Like, I can't really think of a good example of Spinosaurus in pop culture outside of Jurassic Park 3. I'm sure there's something out there, but yeah.
There you go. These other 3 are very little known. I don't. If you want to take some guesses, you can, or I can just tell you what they are.
So the most well-known of the theropods, I think, would be like Allosaurus. He's probably not in there.
Yeah. Allosaurus is too small, so didn't crack the top 5.
There's the one that starts with a C.
Yeah, it's very hard to say, and it is found in Asia.
So give me that one.
That is Carcharodontosaurus at number 2, 43.5 feet long.
They're just trying to... Why name these things in a way that's just trying to trip everybody up, you know?
I know. Carcharodontosaurus. Wild spelling. The main evolutionary feature of them, they had a really complex tooth structure, which was unique as compared to other theropods. Only found in Asia, and I think they've only found maybe 5 or less specimens of these guys, and certainly nothing near to a full specimen. So we don't know as much about them, and they're not as popular because of it. These theropods, once Pangea split, what's super neat is many of these T-Rex-like dinosaurs got to be so different from each other. They were all big and bad and super scary, but they had these really unique features because they had their own isolated evolutionary bubble that they were allowed to kind of carve out their own niche in.
Yeah.
So like if you look up the face of Carcharodontosaurus, it's very differently shaped than a T-Rex.
And I see here they have a reconstructed skull of one of these at the Science Museum of Minnesota. So
there you go.
Yeah, but I mean, this skull I'm looking at looks kind of like a T-Rex to me, but...
Well, that's because you're untrained swine and you don't know what you're talking about.
Untrained swine. I'm an untrained pig. Got it.
All right, you have another guess for number 3 or 5 here.
Just go ahead and tell me. Because I'll probably recognize them once you say them, but I'm not going to be able to guess their names.
Number 5, coming in at 36.5 feet, so just a little bit shorter than T-Rex, is Mapusaurus.
Did you say Mapu? Mapusaurus?
Yes, Mapusaurus.
With a P?
Yep, M-A-P-U.
Oh, okay.
Found in Argentina and South America. Now, this is crazy. Only 1 case of Mapusaurus has been found, but they had 7 different specimens. So this has led them to think that despite its very large size, it was a pack hunter.
Oh.
Now, there's still great debate whether or not they were mob hunters like hyenas, so they didn't coordinate well. They all just happened to roam together, but they were ineffective. Or whether they were a pack hunter like a wolf, which means that they actually had a pre-planned attack method. But only 1 instance of Mapusaurus ever in the history of the world we've found, and there were 7 of them together, and that was in Argentina.
Seems like a safe bet then that they were pack animals.
Yeah, well, either a pack or just a horde. Like they traveled together, but they weren't very effective at coordination. And then number 3 is the Giganotosaurus.
Say again?
Giganotosaurus.
With a G?
Or Giganotosaurus. Known colloquially as the Giga.
I'm looking him up here.
Giganotosaurus.
Yeah, I see him. Again, listeners, check the show notes for image links.
Notice how thin the face is on the Giga. It's kind of its calling card. Despite being much bigger than the T-Rex at 43 feet, the Giga had a very thin face, and this is the dinosaur that to date we only have found 2 different parts of its jaw and a couple of teeth, and that's all we knew. They had to extract the rest from this Tyrannosaurus-like figure that actually had a much thinner, slimmer face, and that's all they know.
So they're just taking an educated guess at its total size.
Right, yeah, based on its teeth and its jaw compared to the T-Rex.
It's like, millions of years from now when they find your fossils and they take a look at your ass bones. That's all they can find, but they're able to calculate the rest of your body size.
Yeah, I hope they don't find my ass bones because I'd have a lot of questions about my biological makeup if I've got ass bones.
You got bones under there.
Well, that's not what I'm working with. It's not what I'm trying to show off. It's not my bones.
No, you can say that again.
So that's it. So recapping the 5 largest theropods, we got number 5, Mapusaurus, 4, Tyrannosaurus Rex, the king, at least when it comes to merchandising.
Uh-huh.
Number 3, the Giga. Number 2, Carcharodontosaurus. And number 1, the semi-aquatic Spinosaurus.
Yeah. Which one's your favorite?
Oh, boy. I'm a sucker for Spinosaurus. I hate to say it. Not because of Jurassic Park 3, but I love that crocodile-looking snout. A giant sail on this very large bipedal animal that was a threat everywhere. Oh, you can jump in the water to get away from a Mapusaurus maybe because it can't swim with the tiny forearms. Not from a Spinosaurus, bub. You're screwed. Land, water, you're done.
It makes you wonder what he did in like really windy conditions, though. Because you think of like a sailboat. It gets taken away from the wind.
Well, you know, a semi-truck gets blown in the wind too, but it doesn't blow them right off the highway.
No,
they keep going.
A semi-truck doesn't have, a really thin, kite-like, sail-like fin on its back.
But it's still getting the same amount of air resistance to one side. Pretty sure the force applied by the wind is still going to be the same, regardless of how thick the actual object is.
You're right. A bowling ball getting wind and a piece of paper getting wind are the same thing. You're right. Same effect.
So in that case, then the sail would weigh less than a semi-truck, so it actually would be easier to withstand wind resistance than a semi-truck. So it wouldn't have a problem at all. Because the sail is going to weigh less.
It's not about the weight, though. It's about, because the sail or the spine of the Spinosaurus is going to capture the wind. And it's going to...
Well, so will the side of an 18-wheeler. It has a flat a flat wall.
It's okay to admit that you don't know what you're talking about.
All right. Well, that recaps our double dip of the dinosaur lists. I hope it wasn't too technical. As Nick said, please look up the show notes or do some of your own Googling. Take a walk down memory lane if you haven't thought about dinosaurs in a while. It's just super cool to imagine that they were here walking on this very same ground we all are on today. It's just absolutely nuts.
Yep, 6,000 years ago. It is nuts. Yeah, it's wild. I love doing lists on animals and dinosaurs, things like that, so I'm glad we did this. Next week, I'm going to be back with our mutual friend Alex Johns for episode number 210. Buster, anything you want to shout out to Alex Johns here?
Go get him Death Blow.
Okay.
That's a deep cut for Seinfeld fans.
Yeah, no, I got it.
I just rewatched that episode a few weeks ago.
I don't remember asking your life story, but I guess thanks anyway.
Fuck off.
If anyone needs to take a pop quiz on Dr. Buster's life, I guess you are prepared now. All right. Well, let me think of a quick dinosaur-esque pun to close us out here.
This episode was Dynamite.
All right, that's going to have to do because I don't have any mental energy left to come up with something better. Thank you, Dr. Buster. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and I'll see you next week. Adios.
Bye.
Mobile phone companies say they offer home internet. But if their internet comes from a cell phone network, you should know. It's just phone internet, not home internet. Keep your home up to speed with Cox. Cox internet is faster and has more reliable download speeds than 5G home internet. Cox is the real home internet you're looking for. Based on Cox analysis of Ookla speed test intelligence data Q3 2022 and Cox serviceable areas, visit cox.com/internet for details. Mobile phone companies say they offer home internet. But if their internet comes from a cell phone network, you should know. It's just phone internet, not home internet. Keep your home up to speed with Cox. Cox internet is faster and has more reliable download speeds than 5G home internet. Cox is the real home internet you're looking for. Based on Cox analysis of Ookla speed test intelligence data Q3 2022 and Cox serviceable areas, visit cox.com/internet for details.